This, for your attention, listener, is an episode horribly out of time. It was supposed to come out in July of 2023. To you in the future, that means nothing. But to you right now, that's a long time ago. Going into this, as you will soon learn, you should have the events of the Homecoming arc, that is the arc, ended with episode 231, Come Sail Away. You should have the events of this arc in mind, the kidnapping of Sarah and Cinnamon, the arrival at Wishing Star Island, and the subsequent return to campus. But I hope you enjoy the episode, nonetheless.
Welcome to Conversations and Catapults, the number one after show for the number one D&D podcast. I'm your host, Nathan, and joining me today are my starlights, my star brights. Go ahead and introduce yourselves, my beautiful constellations.
I think I am an Aquarius. Hi, my name is Ben, and I play the Gnome Wizard Wallaby on the hit number one podcast, Trials and Trebuchets.
Well, I've always wanted to be a star, so here I am. I'm Sarah, and I play Mira Marchand on the hit D&D podcast, Trials and Trebuchets. Carla, unfortunately, could not make it.
Unfortunately.
Yes, Carla had to go save lives.
Ugh, how dare she?
We love her for that.
Priorities straight, Carla, come on.
Hi, my name is Sam, and I am an Aries? I am an Aries. Yes, I am an Aries. Doesn't that make sense? I play Sarah Nipsiderman.
Hi!
You're here.
I'm Luke, the Dungeon Master. I'm the Dungeon Star.
The Dungeon Star.
Oh, no, I'm the Red Wishing Star. That's it.
Oh, yes. Oh, we love to get the star lore, not to be confused with the Star Wars.
Star Lord.
Yeah, sorry. Oh, the Star Lord is also a thing.
Oh,
yeah.
so many confusion.
Jeez Louise, so many different rhymes. But this is our big wrap up for the Homecoming arc of this Wildcliff campaign. It has been fun as hell, but we're also going to be primarily covering episodes 229 to 231, just because that was the most recently recorded batch, and wanted to go ahead and start off, as we always do whenever we're doing an arc wrap-up, with some roses and thorns. Whoever wants, whoever feels led can start us off.
I have a rose.
Ben, let's hear that fucking rose.
My rose for this one is that it really feels like what you would expect from a D&D campaign in terms of like, oh, there's a tone of seriousness to it. Like, we have a mission, we know what we need to do. But in order to do that, we kind of have to jump through some hoops, and the way that we jump through those hoops may or may not be quite so serious. It might be a little bit goofy.
Yeah.
A little bit silly. I think I like that. I like the freedom of being able to find a creative solution, however ridiculous it might seem to the situation. Infiltration and espionage is like the perfect opportunity to really jump into that.
Yeah, I'm always asking myself why spy movies don't get a little bit more silly with it. Like, why are no one like disguising themselves as a castaway named Castaway?
That was good, honestly.
That was good.
Honestly spectacular. The naming.
The barrel merchant, whatever you want to call it.
That was that was goofy ass shit, and that was dumb as, but like in a
Yes.
fun way,
Yeah.
But like y'all were like fucking silly ass.
It's nice to get to do shenanigans. I really enjoyed the resolution to the Philip stuff. I've been a long-time proponent of brainwashing.
Yes.
I thought the reveal that this is a place that the royal family has been.
Long time proponent of brainwashing. I love brainwashing.
Well, Philip
Me and my whole
specifically, I
family were
realize how that
brainwashed.
sounded. I just think brainwashing in general is really cool in real life and in fiction. And I don't know, I just thought the reveal that this is
Mira
something the royal
audience.
family has been doing for a long time, including to their own son. Super cool, super neat. I'm very excited to truly bite into the implications of that. So I just thought, I thought that whole subplot was really fun. And I also enjoyed getting to do the goofy shenanigans, but Ben covered that.
Yeah. No, I think Sarah just kind of covered mine, just like the reveal of like all the, like this entire other part of like the royal family of like, hey, this is where the people who were causing a lot of trouble for the royal family go, and now they can't cause trouble anymore because their brain is just literally turned to mush.
Yeah. The easiest way to keep trouble to keep heads in the kingdom is to make sure that any nails that are stuck out get hammered down with brainwashing. You know?
Yes.
You would think that they would find a simpler solution,
You
but
would think.
alas.
But alas. Well, you guys covered all the serious bits. The humor here is fun. The general story with like Serenep and Philip, we've wrapped up that kind of thing, especially as of 231. We really wrapped that up, which is what I had hoped to accomplish here. And then we'll be moving into like some other more bits as alluded to by like the end of 31, the events of 231. But if I can be a little less serious for a moment, I really like nautical stuff. I like nautical horror a lot. We got a good setup and a mid payoff, but we still got a little bit of nautical horror.
Bonus rose. Fucking love Rhaegar. Rhaegar rules.
Oh, Rhaegar.
Speaking of nautical stuff.
Yes.
Cool. Oh,
Yeah. NPC redemption.
I'm
here.
sure there will be no consequences to letting them get away.
Absolutely none.
Oh God. If I may do a
Yes.
listener
Oh,
rose,
please.
just to say like really enjoyed all of the Wildcliff stuff that has also happened in this arc, just because I think a lot of our focus has been on the more recent like Serenep kidnapping stuff, but absolutely adore the Wildcliff Warbler. Love that. Loved
Thank you.
the return of Very Periwinkle and the misappropriation of funds. Loved to also really enjoyed getting a little look at what the new Golem's internality is like. That was something that I was
so
not
cool.
expecting that I really enjoyed.
Kind of dark.
Same, it ruled.
You know? And now the free press is threatened.
yes.
It's fucked up. But those are
The
some
free press is threatened twice over because I'm pretty sure Allah also made a comment about having the control of press under her like jurisdiction. So now it's like doubly so.
Everyone wants a fucking piece of the school newspaper.
Yeah.
I love it. It's great.
But now you've got like Crow clamping down on everything. So now you've got like, oh, maybe she wants to sort of write some like slander against Crow, but now Crow's like, no, we shouldn't do that. That's a bad idea.
Yeah.
So it's like, what do? You gotta write something.
Gotta make it look like it's not slander, but
Crow's
like put
fucking
some words
spiraling. Crow is losing it. He's lost his fucking edge. He's past his prime. Like the moment that you go to the like people who are writing for a school newspaper and like I need full editorial control is the moment where you no longer have control.
Yep.
Yeah.
But let's talk about any thorns that we may have just briefly. And like let's go big picture here in terms of like what we're looking at.
I'll start this one off. I have big thorns. I have many thorns. We're not going to get into that whole thing here because, you know, it's not good radio. But my biggest thorn that I can point to is I got to stop jumping the shark with this sometimes, you know? It doesn't have to be a horrible turn everyone into a sea monster, attack the tower, sink the island kind of thing. It can just be, we could have just done politics and brainwashing, you know? For my best efforts, I love nautical horror too much. You know, jump the shark.
I mean, it's really that the sharks jumped the players, as it were.
Oh, that's a good title right there.
A lesser thorn is that I described the water going up instead of the island sinking down, which is what actually happened. That's a very minor thorn, but it's a thorn.
I still think that's so tiny that you
No.
can fix it in post. I think you should fix it in post.
So
Nothing ever gets fixed in post in this fucking town.
Episode 13 flashbacks.
That took like 2 years. For those of you who are listening, like before
did
the
not take
podcast
2
became
years.
big, there was like a solid year or two where episode 13 just fucking didn't have Ben's audio. For about 5 years.
Yep.
You just cut
The secret's
Ben.
out.
It was about a decade where Ben just didn't speak in that fucking episode.
Essential
And he
audio,
fixed
by
it.
the way,
So
because he's the one who
He wanted for us and he didn't fucking
I
talk.
think it was you, Nathan, who said to me once, Luke, I almost stopped listening to this fucking podcast because it was so bad.
Yep.
It was bad. It was pretty rough, but I must protest. We used to record on Tuesday nights. I was up editing after we recorded, and it was 2 a.m. and Ben was asleep. I thought, I'm going to re-record his audio, and we couldn't put an episode out late, and I couldn't beat Ben, so I just went up without it.
Please release the Luke Ben cut.
podcast
I
has
can't.
never come out
Did you
late.
tell me about that?
No.
I don't know if you've ever mentioned that to me.
Break us off a piece right now of your Ben impression, Luke.
Oh, fuck. I'm gonna kill you.
I rolled rat.
Oh
Jesus. This is the kind of impression that only comes from someone who has lived with another person for years on end.
I guess if I had to say a thorn, though, I would probably be in a similar vein, just in terms of like the ending, because I felt that it was a little bit like abrupt. I thought that like Sereneth got like enchanted, but then that didn't really end up like mattering a ton. Like it felt to me like the island, like the ending was more about the island as a place than the people who are on it. Like I guess just like to me, like it's more interesting to fight sailors who are just guys than like sailors who are sharks in this specific context. I'm all for fighting sharks in general. So I guess like I didn't find the conclusion super satisfying, but now that we are back at Wildcliff, I am incredibly excited for everything that's coming next. I think this is going to rule. I've been having so much fun so far.
Yeah. Like, I think that's a lot of bouncing off of what Sarah said in terms of, like, the thorns. It's that, like, in some cases, or, like, quite a few cases, something has happened, and the consequences of what has happened didn't really stick, either because they were fixed immediately, or it didn't really have any sort of lasting impact for the times that it came up, right?
Yes.
Because I don't think, outside of Rhaegar, I don't think anything is going to come up again from this arc. So it's not really going to have that huge of an impact.
Yeah.
Before we get to another thorn,
Yeah.
I wanted to actually ask, do you all think that's like an issue with D&D as a system here?
Ooh.
Because of like, especially at a high enough level, you can overcome, the players have a wide variety of tools at their disposal, especially a party of four different
mages.
Kinds of mages.
Yeah.
Yep.
So like, wide spread of everything that you can take care of. Do you all think that is an issue with the system itself and like playing within its rules? And I feel like this could even go to like Luke, the issue with the sailors becoming like shark people. Like this kind of like D&D needs a sort of like combat like climax.
Yeah, I have a very actual thought out answer about this, Nathan, because it's like one of the things that I've been mulling over since we recorded it. Is it a problem with the system? No, it's not. Is it a problem with inexperience at these levels as me, the Dungeon Master? Yes. Is it a compulsion over the last couple of arcs to try to have more combat? Yes. So those are both not issues of the system, because you can play D&D without having combat, right? You can do that. It's a game built for, it has a lot of rules around combat, but you can still play it without combat. The early arcs, very, very low on combat, lots of just social encounters and mystery solving and stuff like that. And then the power level of the players going up and up and up, it makes me more unprepared for how to account for those things. There's a joke I made literally last time we sat down to record or a conversation we've had, Nathan and Sarah, of verbs and giving interesting verbs. And now we're at a point where I have to come up with interesting verbs that can't just be spelled away, right? That have to have more creative solutions to them, ways of interacting with the world in more creative fashions. And I am I'm inexperienced with this. This is the highest level game I've ever ran. So when I say, oh, you can't find the person, and Mira goes, locate creature, idiot. Or when I go, the locked door, and Winslow goes, pass wall, fuck off. Or, oh, you can't get over this bottomless pit, and Sereneth can just levitate people, right? We have these spells, they're accessible, or when you cast Gaze, and Mira goes, dispel magic, and I have a plus 1,000 to charisma, so it just works, right? The best you can hope for is set a DC, or not the best you can hope for, but an ill-prepared best you can hope for is set a high DC, and maybe it'll work out in your favor. The real answer would be to be more prepared, have narrative consequences, and run a narrative game over a combat-heavy game, right? There's the three pillars of D&D that everyone always talks about, like the exploration, combat, and the narrative aspect. I should really put more emphasis on that last one because it suits us and the way this campaign works in a better format, right? And I think that's,
Like if the issue is, things can just be spelled away with magic, I guess, building off what you're saying, the idea then is to instill, if not mechanical consequences, the narrative ones for doing that,
Exactly.
Like, no, this is not a spell that has come up in this campaign, but it's one that we've explored a lot in like different D&D campaigns. Something like Modify Memory can solve a lot of issues. And so then it's a matter of like, but that has a lot of like human implications, which for what it's worth, like I don't think that you do a bad job of instilling, like personally.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. Yes. I think it's a particularly rough case here and somewhat chronic, however, not morbidly so.
Nathan, as someone who has run, I know that we're not interviewing you, but I kind of do want to ask you this just because I'm genuinely interested in your answer. You've run more high-level games. Like, you've run, as far as I can recall, level 18, 20 campaigns. How do you get about this?
I fuck up so bad because it's so hard for me. Yeah, so I've been running a higher level campaign for a bunch of tactical optimizers in combat especially, and I don't think a single one of them dropped to 0 hit points once. And it was so a big issue was all right, perfect, I'll have moral implications because at this higher level, something that I have used a whole lot as a measuring stick in my own life with this kind of DMing, for high-level characters, is superhero fiction. The idea of great power coming with great responsibility, and also the fear that comes from, being around people who are more powerful than you. So, a lot of NPCs, upon recognizing, at a certain level that, the player characters are involved in a lot of shit, and they can do a lot of shit, the only thing that is keeping them from doing that to me is their own moral code, and even that, I don't know how, strong that is. And so it is introducing problems that have moral implications or moral consequences that the player characters will then need to reckon with. That being said, that's really difficult when you have a straight up evil kingdom or not that Ashwa itself is inherently evil or ontologically evil.
It's a little bit.
You got a hint of it.
It's not great. But all of that to say, I think that is, and I'm basically just echoing what Luke has said. You need to have if the puzzle can be solved with the casting of one spell or doing defeating one person, then there should be questions about the ramifications of that. Whether it is, this Gias, or however you want to pronounce it, I don't know the actual pronunciation.
It's either gay ass. It's either gay ass, as Sarah said in the episode.
Happy Pride Month.
Or gays, or somewhere between those two.
Yeah, gay ass, gays, geese.
Geese.
That's another
geese
good
is
title.
very good. Gay ass geese. Nonetheless,
it could be a thing of this gay ass is locked into your mind in such a way that dispelling it would also lead to a degree of some memories are erased. Or it becomes a thing of a key aspect of their personality changes.
Yeah,
Now,
which
here's
kind
the
of
hard
makes
part,
me think that maybe there is a structural issue with D&D because I think that is cool, but that also necessitates playing a little bit fast and loose with the rules of magic in the system, right?
Very good
This
point.
is something, I don't know if, Sarah, you listened to this CNC. I assume you might have. This is one of the only structural
you
issue
did
I
talk
run
about this, didn't
into
you?
with D&D is sometimes my conceptions of magic don't align with what I like the spells. Even the spell wasn't just straight up Gace, because I was it's not just Gace. It's it's some child between modifying memory. It's some child between suggestion. It's some child between Gace. It's just an enchantment. It's just an enchantment, right? And that's why I referred to it as my notes. And because I knew it would come into a dispel magic situation, I was I guess I'll just use the Gace rules. And that's where the damage goes. And Sarah goes, it is gas. And I'm well, not, but yes, right? The structural thing I would point to in this case is magic is kind of cut and dry in the kind of things that it can do, and something that goes you can pull this little chip out of your brain, but that will completely alter who you are and the things that you can do. First of all, that's a lot to drop on a player sometimes, right?
Yes.
Especially despite the fact that Sarah walks into this entire thing and goes along with it despite having apprehensions, that's still a lot to do and removes a little bit of agency from your character to do that to them.
That's probably a talk to them in advance type thing,
Exactly,
which does not always
Literally
align with
what
how you want to do
happened
things.
with
Exactly. That's the biggest thing.
Sam, you were gonna say something?
Oh, I was just, because you talked talking to the person before, I think the day we were going to be recording, you kind of said to me hey, so here's sort of the things that are going to happen with Sharonep following this. And so that sort of stuff, you have to really, because I was staring at this I have to remember a lot of these things now for this character to make sense anymore.
Because there is a DM like that inside me who wants to be thing, and now an irreversible change to your character, right? That's a part of me. I want to do that sometimes, but the magic of the game does not always fit with that, and so it sometimes becomes a case of DM fiat, And I also think it can start to feel a bit piled on, or at a certain point cruel. If you have a connotation of like who your character is and what you want that character to be, and your DM goes, that's not the character you're playing, and changes it, that could be fun, but I think also that could not be fun at the same time.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And there's also an additional factor of like, how the hell do you let the players know that is a risk with the dispelling, right?
Yes. Signposting risk is so important. Like
Make an Arcana check, and if you roll below a certain number, fuck, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't get anything.
Truly.
You are cursed.
Truly.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a type of game that's fun. I don't think that this is that kind of game.
Probably
necessarily.
And it would probably not be great radio either, is the thing, right?
Exactly,
like,
yeah. It'd be fun. It'd be sick
like,
as fuck at a home game, right?
Yeah.
And then you just kind of go over them, and usually everyone at the table goes, oh, that's crazy. What if it's but if we're in the weeds. If we're trying to present a naturalistic read or a naturalistic presentation of what the game actually is, which is what we try to do, but we also all are dramatic as fuck, and we try to lean into the fact that it is a bit of a radio play. You know, you get some good and you get some bad in doing that mix, right? And I don't always want this to just be super naturalistic, crunchy, talking about the rules for 40 minutes of, us playing. Totally.
There's really only so much you can do with D&D rules, right? Without completely warping what it is.
Breaking them.
And that's true of every system, I think.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Nothing's perfect.
Rules are kind of designed to be broken when you look at it that way. Because following the rules to the letter is just not always that fun, really.
Yeah, all you fucking rules lawyers.
Excuse me?
Sorry to the two rules lawyers here.
Yes, Sam, what the hell?
You're talking to the one person of this entire group who knows the least about this game, probably.
The better you know the rules, the more precisely you can break them to fit the way you want it to work.
Yeah.
That being said, sometimes they are a bit restrictive, but all of this to say, we've gotten in the weeds, as Lucas said.
It was fun.
Yep, it was fun. And speaking of weeds, there's one more thorn to get to. Sam, I don't think we heard one from you.
Well, I think because I feel like we already kind of talked about the thorn that was kind of sitting there, and Luke already very wonderfully explained this steps in the future, that sort of thing already about it. But I was kind of excited to go into Brainwash Serenepth. That's why I was I was taking the notes you sent me to heart.
Oh, this is gonna be
this is gonna be so interesting and cool to do. And I'm kind of sad that it ended so quickly, but at the same time, they already knew what to look for. They came in, they heard the there was no other way it would have really gone at that point. Yeah. Except for trying to figure out how to get rid of it. But even then,
I hate to jump to this, but it is something that's interesting because I was prepared. There's a world where we got a ton of Serenepth brainwashed, and that world is the one where Winsler doesn't immediately fucking murk Dr. Eleanor Winstead with fucking crystal glass.
I'm gonna say instantly catapulting her was definitely not my wisest decision.
I was in my fucking villain monologue mode, and then Winsler and Mira walk into the room, and I was like, unexpected. And Ben was like, shut up. As soon as she said unexpected, I fucking kill her. And I was like, right.
Yeah.
It's so funny to picture little Winsler in his little castaway disguise, walking hey, what's up? Bam! Throwing a glass at your head.
This is one thing I really liked about that, though. At 229, this is the thing. We have spectacular and Oreo of things. The center, mid, no one wants it. But the two little cookies on either side, sensational.
Okay, I don't agree with that, but we're not going to get into that.
I'm an Oreo cookie fan. Anyways, but 229 with the Rhaegar stuff and then the Winston stuff, I was really having fun playing as Winston. And then the suddenness with which she dies, I think was very fun, right? In a game that's D&D and you expect this to be a big fight and she's going to have a stat block. She just has 1 HP, and she's going to die quick, easy. And I enjoy that kind of suddenness. Because we don't really see it all the time.
And that's actually a very interesting, we were talking about that thing earlier. I mean, Nathan, you mentioned superhero fiction and how do you reconcile with the fact that, you are substantially more powerful than the average person. And typically I feel like that doesn't come up a lot in D&D because the enemies necessarily scale as you do. You're fighting more and more powerful people. I actually think it's very interesting to have that moment of oh my god, this is how few HP like a commoner can have. This is what it means to deal with a problem where it's just a guy. And hey, maybe just because you can doesn't mean you should, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Super interesting.
Dr. Winston just reminded me of like the light at the tip of an anglerfish like stalk, where it is like, oh yeah, this is the thing that draws you in, kind of hypnotizes.
Not the true threat, though.
The real threat is the island itself.
Yeah.
It's bait.
Yes, exactly. But speaking of, though, I wanted to get to the second Oreo cookie and discuss with the four of you. This was, you know, and the like grand tradition of, you know, that one Pokemon episode where Ash said goodbye to his Butterfree.
Yes.
This was bye-bye Philip.
Bye.
Yeah, gone forever.
Ugh.
Like dust in the wind.
Tell me, as we get this kind of like series wrap on Philip, like Sam, Luke, that was a very intense scene that was representing a huge crossroads, not just for Sereneth, but for the podcast itself. Tell me, what were the different considerations that you all had going into this?
That's an interesting question. This arc had a million outcomes, which was Sereneth in some way irreversibly leaves. I think that's kind of well shown, right? Either she gets sent to the crown and something goes bad, or she gets sent to the crown and something goes good, but then she's there forevermore, right? And that was like the dramatic conceit of kind of like the idea, right? Where I was like, I'm gonna put Sereneth in this position where it's like sink or swim, right? And we get to this moment where it's like, oh, we escaped it, we did it all, and then Philip finally has this last come with me and leave everything and everyone behind. This is our only chance to really get away from this, please, right? And that's the dramatic moment, one of the many dramatic moments that I like envisioned when I was like, oh, this is what we're doing now, right? Whereas I was like, I want a scene where Philip goes, this is it, come with me, or come with me, or don't, and I'm leaving now, right? One way or another.
Sam, what were some of the things going through your head during that scene? Because that was a lot of pressure to put on you as a player to like say like, oh, you could ride off into the sunset here.
This is your happy ending. Please accept. Right.
I think I kind of said it in the episode as well of like, at least I know he's safe, but even if one of them hates me, I did make a promise to people I do care about back at Wildcliff. I think of how outcomes go in this. Like, I don't know what the spider web that Luke had in his mind of like all these different possible ways to go with this. I think getting Philip out of there, at least knowing that he's alive right now, and because like especially like because I think in the last CNC it was a conversation of like, how much do you care about Philip? Like, oh, if we had talked about this this relationship like a while ago, it would have been. But like she's changing, like she's kind of growing as her own person, and kind of in that moment looking at her friends and thinking about what happened with Angelica because of her and those sorts of things. Like, it wasn't going to be a way for her to kind of run away with Philip at that point.
Yeah, absolutely. That's like a Nathan, you mentioned superheroes, and I always think of not superheroes because I don't like superheroes that much, but mythic fantasy, right? Or just myth in general, mythology of like the hero given the decision, right? Take the easy way. I guess it's a superhero thing as well. Like, take the easy way out or stick around for the people who you care about truly, blah, 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 blah. But like you've known Philip since you were a kid and you've had this kind of like childhood crush relationship with him that has been like, it tried to come to a peak and failed to do so in a dramatic fashion, really, and it came out of more of a tragic ending. And so this final moment where he goes, yeah, obviously you care about me more than you care about these people who you've only known for like a year and a half, come with me, right, is a moment that's like forcing Sereneth to choose between, it's Sereneth choosing between like her story and where it ends and essentially her backstory, if that makes sense, right? Of like, this is the person who I was. I loved this guy when I came here, and now the school has changed me in such a way that I have to say no to him and let him go on his way.
Yeah.
Now, Ben and Sarah, I was curious if things had gone a different way, not to delve too much into hypotheticals, but if Serenep had just like said, yes, Philip, I will go with you. I don't want to deal with the orbs. You know, Angelica can go rot. She's dead.
Damn.
Marina can go rot. She hates me. I'm Audi 5000. Were you all considering how your characters were going to react in that moment?
I think Winsler probably would have been very sad because Serenep is a really good friend and Winsler doesn't like to abandon his friends or see them go, but I think it would have been bittersweet. However, if you'll permit me my thoughts on this, not in terms of like how Winsler would feel most of the, like in the situation.
Yeah.
I think if Serenep went with Philip, I don't think they could have been guaranteed a happy ending because the golemification was never resolved. And I think if Serenep were to go with Philip and the golemification just continued on as normal, she would have been doomed to tragedy no matter what. Like he would have probably passed away sometime after they were together, and then Serenep would just be alone again.
And
So
fuck of it, you know?
So on one hand, having the golemification plotline not be resolved is sort of paved the way for something that was more interesting. So in a way, Serenep and Philip parting ways was probably for the best in the long term for Serenep's overall happiness. So I think Winsler probably would have been devastated if Serenep had left and then came to learn of the knowledge that Philip just ended up leaving Serenep, not because of his own choice, but because of what is actually afflicting him. So
Yeah.
it's definitely bittersweet when you think about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so too. I don't think that Mira would have blamed Serenep for choosing to leave. And the reason I say that is like, you know, after Mira got her arm bitten off, she was considering getting out of this as well. I think that this is something that Mira has had to reconcile within herself as well as, you know, I could probably just have a safer and happier and more comfortable life if I just stepped away from this and didn't care. And, you know, Mira obviously came to the conclusion of, you know, no, I care about my friends. I want to, you know, deal with this problem. I think that we are some of the only people who can deal with it, whom we trust. But I think that, you know, as somebody who did consider the positives of just like getting out of there, I don't think that Mira would have held it against Serenep if she was just like, hey, good luck with the progenitor stuff. I'm out. I'm going to go sail the world with my boyfriend.
Yeah. Interesting.
Well, regardless, Luke, you look like you have something here, and I don't want to move on to my next point.
No, I this feeling where you've just gone to Lem, retrieved Winsler by any means necessary, brought him back, and then to leave him. That feels like and this was the intent in posing it this way. Leave. I was very careful to word it, everyone and everything behind. Come with me right now. It's a very like, it's a fucking crazy thing to say. if let me tell you, if your partner is talking to you like that, they're fucking toxic. Leave them. That's bad. But when fiction characters talk like that, it's very fun, and it brokers this idea of this, to me, if Serenep had said yes, is like the biggest betrayal that she could possibly do to her friends, to Swim.
You risked life and limb to go rescue a friend, and then you suddenly decide to abandon them.
Just because you get a chance out, right?
Yeah.
And the fact that Serenep goes, no, I have to stay, is the heroic quality, right? Or like these people have changed me. These people are important to me, and I will stay until the end with them, right? That is like, that's what you're looking for. That's good shit. It would have been good shit either way. Like the act of, and I think Carla not being here is a tragedy because I feel like Integrity would have a very big feeling of betrayal, very, very big. Because everyone doesn't just mean these three fuckers. It doesn't mean those people back at Wildcliff. It means Serenep. You have a family that you're trying to make an actual connection with, like in the Idleberries. Leave them behind. You'll never see them again. You'll never have family outside of me again. Again, if your partner talks to you like this, get out.
Yeah.
makes me realize that like how much did Philip actually like value the friendship that he had with Serenep's friends, right? Like, did he actually see us as anything more than acquaintances or anything like that? Probably not. So
I mean, why would he have, you know?
Yeah.
I know, but
Yeah.
it's just so strange that he was seemingly
Yeah.
so
So easy to throw it away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just with what Luke brought up like going to Lem, why, like, to save Winslow, why would you?
Yeah.
And also because I like to get into my head when I'm playing a character. A moment that actually happened was I kind of had a kind of, I don't know, flashback to the vision that we had in Lem when we looked in the orb, and I saw you see Angelica again.
Yes.
And just like, I'm going to help you, I'm going to save you. Like, no, like, why? Like, I really can't see the universe with how Sereneth has grown, where she would actually leave, she would leave the group.
Absolutely.
Like, so much stuff has happened.
And I think it was a fun part to end with you being able to like make that choice as a character, as opposed to just a horrible consequence occurring and then dragging Sereneth away, kicking and screaming. Right.
It makes it far better. But after that, we were able to get back to Wildcliff.
Yeah.
Which, squatting at Artis's cottage. Loved the detail about like what a teleportation circle looks like for Artis's cottage. That's all canon.
Yeah.
A children's doodle.
Damn.
You just make pictograms.
Little pictograms. But I wanted to talk for a brief second about the golem information that Mira got in our little interview here.
Yes.
As well as like more broadly, I wanted to talk about like Mira in this odd position with loyalties to Ala Algrim that are kind of forced upon her, as well as like a loyalty to the student body, as well as just trying to stay on Crow's good side as much as possible. I wanted to talk about like, is that a needle that she thinks she can actually thread, or is she going to have to choose like two of these people to satisfy and one to anger?
I think that, like, at the end of the day, we've talked about this as a long-standing thing with Mira, as, being pulled in multiple directions is always sort of been an aspect of Mira's life. In the early levels, it was like, oh, I'm in a bunch of clubs. And now it's like, oh, there are a lot of people that I have to appease here. And how do we go about it? I don't know the full form that this is going to take, but I do think that all things considered with, learning this new information about, oh, these golems are sapient and are being mistreated. And, we are using this newspaper as a way of investigating Crow. And to step back for a second, I think that this has also been a conflict with Mira where she has always kind of tried to please everyone. A lot of the time, we could even see this with the Ferdinand situation of like, okay, let's sit down and negotiate. Let's try to find some solution that works best for everyone. I think here, my hope with the way things are going to progress is that I would really like to see with Mira is her choosing Mira. Like, oh, maybe I can't please anyone here by doing the right thing, but it is still worth doing.
Really enjoy that.
I immediately draw the parallel to we've just been discussed. Sereneth in episode 10 would be like, I'm outie, see ya, going off with my boyfie off into the fucking Gleam, right? And then Sereneth's growth has been to choose connection, to choose the people close, and to choose connection, right? As I said.
And in a way, Philip is a representation of Sereneth if she hadn't grown. Like, we don't know anyone who is like close to Philip, right? Philip has always just had just Sereneth, no one else.
Yeah. He's a relic of an old life. And now we see here the moment of growth that is imminent upon us for Mira is the moment that Mira says, no, all these other people, they have to wait. And I'm going to make the decision for me first and foremost. Like, not, I guess, selfish, but not in like a pejorative sense, right? Versus this decision Sereneth would have made in episode like 10 before growth happened, right? Same way in that episode 10, Mira would have been like, yeah, everyone else, yeah, I'll do the thing for you. Don't even worry about it, right? And I think that's fun stuff. I think we already see the scene of Mira not 100% getting affirmation or 100% doing the job properly as Ala Algrim would have wanted. Already she's like, there's a disappointment, right? Where she goes from, oh, Mira, oh, and then goes to like a very like, oh, my steward, hey, you're my direct report. This is our one-on-one. Tell me what's going on, right? You're a poor performer. And this feeling of setting up the Warbler, going to the Warbler, feeling like these people I am relying on, and they are looking to me to keep them afloat here, or to keep this thing moving and to give it a sense of purpose and direction. That is like a very big, I would say, thing for Mira. We saw the start of that with ousting, where she started to try to grasp that and say, I'm going to steer the direction for me and the people who are going to follow me, right? And to see that now abutting into Crow's seeming spiral and Allah's attempted influence over her is, and then we're gonna get into it in the next part of this arc.
Exciting.
Stuff with astral projection and Shiora, and that
I cannot wait.
influence upon Mira as well. Supernatural instead of political.
Yes.
I'm also curious, Ben, I don't know if you're a golem expert, but your character certainly is. And so you were able to hear quite a bit about how these new golems work. I was curious in terms of like, when you hear that information, when you kind of digest it, do you immediately run it through like the Winsler processor of like, oh, I know exactly how he's going to react to this when he hears about it? Or are you waiting for the moment that he learns to do any thinking in character?
Probably until the moment he learns, right? Like,
really?
I know for a fact that,
Yeah.
okay, initially we were presented with the idea that these golems are not sentient, right? They are just instructed with whatever they are told to do by Crow, and they are supposed to follow that to the letter. What we don't know is that they communicate via a printing press inside of themselves. So unless you actually go up to a golem and attempt to speak to a golem, you will never know that they are sentient.
Yes.
And Winsler would not know that they're sentient at all. As far as he knows, these golems were created with the idea to be completely subservient and non-sentient. So until he learns the fact that these golems are in fact sentient, he's not gonna know.
He's gonna pick up that paper and be like, he's gonna read it over his morning waffles and be like, well, what the fuck is this?
Yeah, as soon as he learns,
but
like as soon as he learns that these golems are
Mira
sentient,
impression a few minutes ago.
that was a horrific Winsler impression.
he already hates Crow, right?
Yes.
They've already butted heads numerous times, despite him helping him with this whole process to begin with. This is his mess. Upon learning this information, he probably would go to Crow, and I don't want to say things would get violent, but he would be quite upset.
Comrade Wallaby.
Combat versus Crow. Fuck.
That's another one where it's just 1 HP dead.
I think he would probably genuinely try to do something and like make sure the golems are freed properly.
Wow.
Interesting.
Yeah, I'm gonna do a John Brown and Harper's Ferry type of deal, eh?
Whether it's through nice diplomatic conversation or behind Crow's back.
Cut his fucking head off.
Ari's back. We might need Ari's help. Who knows? This golem thing is gonna get out of hand eventually.
Yogg as the face of the golem revolution.
Oh, I would love
God.
that. They would be so powerful.
I want to talk about very briefly, just in terms of like end of this arc. We're seeing a lot of like how the board is set here. Tell me, dear players, who are the biggest threats to Swim right now, in both your opinion and in your character's opinion? Because those two may differ.
Unironically, Sarah, right now, kind of thinking Rhaegar. I know they just showed up, but it seems like, unlike Faramel, they have some shit they actually want to fucking do with these orbs, and that excites me greatly. And I think that, given the fact that we have come back to campus, I don't know about integrity. I'd love to hear Carla's answer to this if she were here, but the rest of us have come back to campus. We are all thinking about these big players. We're thinking about Crow. We're thinking about Alla Algrim. We're thinking about, obviously, Mira's thinking about Terrassus. What if Nesca comes back? Things like that, which makes it very likely that Rhaegar will be able to evade our initial thoughts about people. And the fact that they also are very specifically designed to avoid being attacked by mages worries me and excites me quite greatly.
Yes.
Hell yes.
I looked at the board and I said, well, we've got a bunch of magicians. How best to deal with that? And I find the answer was, as Nathan alluded to in previous CNCs, Rhaegar was made in a lab to solve a problem, and that problem was people getting bodied in fights and not having like a player on the orb field who was directly antagonistic. I am excited for Faramel stuff. It hasn't come up in 200 episodes, so it's like a deep lying thing, and it's obviously not directly antagonistic to the players because it would have come up by now, right? So it's kind of just like a unused, sitting by the side of the road, waiting for its time in the sun kind of thread, but not one where he is a villain here to cut heads and steal orbs and such things, right? As Rhaegar might be.
Very true. Yeah, Faramel has like been in the slow cooker for a hot minute. Just like low and slow, baby, low and slow. And soon that Faramel flesh is going to be nice and tender for us and we can dig right in.
Alternatively, he was in the deep freeze for 4 years. That's an also fun one where we don't eat him at the end.
Yeah. Rhaegar is definitely like
Fair.
the sleeper problem here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
They have the means to get what they want.
Yeah.
And with the progenitor at their back, I do not think there is much stopping them from doing what they need to do. Like, sure, Algrim and Crow are like, yeah, these are like the ones that are in our face at the moment.
Yeah.
Personally, I don't know what kind of threat Algrim can present. Other than being, I am just an intimidating lady who has connections.
She has a lich in her employ.
Yeah.
A lich is employed to her.
But we know what her phylactery is.
You do.
Fair enough.
That's true.
We just don't know anything about the resources that she has under her belt. So, like, I don't really know what she might have. Crow is just using his tried and true skill, which is bureaucracy. And there's only so much that can accomplish when we don't fucking care. I feel like Rhaegar is definitely the true threat here, but yeah.
Yeah, I kind of follow the same thought. Rhaegar, the progenitor, the whole situation with going into the brain, Shiora, all that kind of stuff. I feel like, should I say this? I feel like we could absolutely
all
just
means.
body Crow. Like, there wouldn't be an issue if we had to body
probably
Crow. Don't give me that look.
Luke smiling at the camera.
Hi, audience.
I do think that you know what? Like, you get a full long rest and you get him alone.
Yeah.
You all probably, like, take that fight. However, Crow seems like the type to have, like, a dead man switch upon his death to, like, all right, the minute I die, someone is going to retrieve my body and resurrect me, and then I am going to sue the fuck out of whoever killed me.
Whoever
would
did
be
the
quite the-
finishing
That is
blow, you better
interesting,
hope you have a lot of money.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is interesting, though, like, considering, Sereneth is now, like, does she consider herself, like, you know what? Ashua not even a threat to me anymore. I got this amulet. I'm good. I'm fine. Like, I know that there's a meta level that it's like, we're done with this plot line, but also I'm curious about how scared Sereneth is to show her face at school again.
I think that because of the failed attempt this last time to get Sereneth, I feel like the biggest threat would be them coming back to the school and try to grab her. Like, even then, we have the amulet now, which can at least help cloak her from divination, those sorts of things. I feel like, I mean, if we ever have to leave, like once the curtain has fallen and then it's sort of like everyone kind of goes through their lives. Once she's out of Wildcliff, this like small epicenter of all the crazy shit that happens, I feel like she's confident enough in herself to just kind of live her life.
Yeah. And do you do that within the borders of the Ashran Kingdom?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
Going somewhere else.
Okay.
Like disguises, taking on maybe like bounty stuff for money, like getting out of there.
Dangerous game.
The most dangerous.
I want to thank good friend of the show, Luca, for the inspiration to create Rhaegar and most of this plot. He wrote a short story and sent it to me, and it was compelling, quite compelling. And therefore, I created a little bounty hunter. Bounty hunters are things I'm fond of and are seldom explored in this kind of like. It's one of these things. We attend a magical school institution, and so bounty hunters and this kind of like criminal aspect aren't really going to come up very much. But it's like one of those pet things that you have in the back of your mind of how you want things to work. I'm glad that they were perceived as like a great threat. I think there was a moment in the episode 229 where I felt quite like I'm not vindicated is not the right word, but it's what I'm going to use. Vindicated when I was like, oh, it called me the aspirant one, and then like the look on the players' faces was just like, this is great. This is what I do this for. Like you just learn so much from that single like name given, that single title given, that it was really fun for me. And so, and Nathan, I made it as a joke. And it wasn't really that much of a joke. You guys can now see in retrospect where I was like, oh, Nathan, if this was a different campaign, I'd have Rhaegar as some long-term nemesis kind of villain, right? Which listeners won't know this, but Nathan pretty much exactly called that shot before it happened, which sensational stuff. This arc was a lot of me doing stuff and people calling my shots on what was happening, like Ben being like, it's a star island. The star made the island. The star is the thing that's in the island. And then Nathan being like, oh, Rhaegar is a warlock that's gonna, come into conflict with integrity. And I was like, okay, y'all,
that
cool.
means your narrative coheres.
I guess it does.
Yes.
Consistent.
This is a very good thing. It's a good problem to have when people can be like, I see where this is going, and it makes sense, and it's good. Well, speaking of seeing where this is going and it being good, I see this going into the ending. Gang, if you enjoyed this episode of Conversations and Catapults and you wanted to show your appreciation, leave a rating and review on the podcatcher of your choice. It doesn't cost you a fucking dime and it makes our days. But if you do have a few dimes that you want to toss around, we got Patreon. We got patreon.com/Trials and
Patreon.
You can get so many different rewards. You can get blooper reels. You can get DM notes. You can get your own NPC.
Like Runa or Arlie or Syndra.
Yes, 3 incredible Wildcliff Warblers, aka the Patreon
Damn, who
NPC
don't you like?
residents. But next up, there is also, if you want to show your appreciation in another way, you have a little bit of extra money lying around after donating to Patreon.
Y'all like stuff?
Yeah, do you like stuff? Do you like physical things to hold in your hands? Go to TrevMerch.com.
Whoa,
Trevmerch.com.
Trevmerch.com.
Just stickers, shirts, a custom-made bicycle.
I would
What?
fucking kill for that.
That would be amazing.
With your help, we can make it happen.
With your help, we can make it happen.
And last but not least, maybe you don't want to do any of that shit. Maybe you just want a little bit more trials and trebuchets in your life. If so, you can find us on the socials. Go to Instagram.com/trialsandtrebs. We got fan art, we got previews, we got little clips, we got an episode announcements. That way you're never late. You're always listening right when these episodes are hot off the fucking presses from the Wildcliff Warbler.
I bet you're binge listening right now.
And if you are, here's the next episode coming up in 3, 2, 1. Bye!